Look closely at the Tyrannosaurus rex. It was the epitome of strength, massive, apex, unchallenged. Yet, where is it now? Vanished, a victim of its own success, its immense specialization becoming a terminal weakness. We often mistake size, force, or rigidity for resilience. We equate survival with raw power. But the biological, historical, and economic records offer a chilling counterargument. Survival is not strength, it is adaptation. Disclaimer: this analysis focuses strictly on evolutionary and strategic principles of persistence, not physical or psychological strength in the clinical sense. Keynote 1: The myth of static power. We begin by dismantling the fixed mindset that views resources or current success as the ultimate defense. In physics, strength measures the resistance to external force, but in evolution, true resistance is measured by the capacity for internal reorganization. Consider the great ancient empires. They built walls, codified laws, and amassed armies, symbols of immovable strength. Their collapse rarely came from a frontal assault they couldn't repel, but from internal decay or a shift in the environmental terrain they failed to notice. The meteor that ended the Cretaceous period wasn't just a sudden impact. It was a radical shift in climate, food chains, and atmospheric conditions. Creatures optimized for specific resource-rich conditions perished first. Their specialized power became a liability. Contrast this with the small, generalized mammals. They were neither the strongest nor the fastest. But they possessed low energy requirements, diverse diets, and rapid reproductive cycles, traits of flexibility. They adapted to the darkness, the cold, and the scarcity. Their lack of specialization was their shield. In the modern corporate world, this manifests as core competency traps. Organizations define themselves by what they do best, right now. They build massive organizational muscle around a static goal. This rigidity makes pivoting catastrophically difficult. When the market shifts, digital migration, disruptive tech, global crises, that muscle mass becomes metabolic overhead. The focus should never be on maintaining power, but on increasing velocity and decreasing reaction time to novel input. Think of the concept of anti-fragility, popularized by Taleb. Strength resists shock. Anti-fragility benefits from it. The strong organization survives, battered. The adaptive organization evolves, leveraging the chaos into new structure. This demands a strategic humility, the acceptance that today's best practice is tomorrow's obsolete artifact. We must design systems, both biological and operational, that prioritize learning over locking down certainty. Static power relies on predictability. Adaptation thrives on volatility. The world rewards those who can unknow quickly. The core thesis remains: the energy spent maintaining an unsustainable status quo is wasted survival capital. True long-term survival is the continuous process of adjusting internal settings to external dynamics. This concept transitions us directly into the deep history of life itself, illustrating adaptation as the fundamental law of existence. It is not the strongest species that endure, but the ones most responsive to change. Keynote 2: The biological imperative. Let's look at the natural world, where adaptation isn't a strategy, it's the default state. The hallmark of successful biological lineages is not impressive musculature, but impressive plasticity. Consider the deep ocean. Organisms there face crushing pressure, total darkness, and thermal extremes. They don't survive by fighting the environment. They survive by fully integrating its constraints into their physiology. Their protein structures, their metabolic rates, their very cellular architecture is engineered for the unexpected. The generalist species consistently outlives the specialist. The specialist masters one niche, but dies when the niche evaporates. The generalist handles a variety of circumstances, albeit imperfectly, ensuring widespread survival across variable epochs. This principle applies directly to human skill sets. Relying on one extraordinary skill creates structural vulnerability. The adaptable individual possesses T-shaped skills, deep expertise in one area, broad competence across many. When the central pillar of expertise becomes automated or irrelevant, the lateral arms provide the crucial leverage for transition. Think of the phenomenon of exaptation, where a trait evolved for one purpose is co-opted for an entirely new function. Feathers didn't start for flight, they started for insulation. Adaptation reuses existing structures to solve new problems. This means we must cultivate capabilities, not just skills. Capabilities are transferable assets, latent tools ready for redeployment. The greatest danger is adaptive lag, the delay between environmental shift and systemic response. In fast-moving environments, even a 6-month lag can be fatal. This is why small, decentralized systems often win. They have shorter feedback loops and lower activation energy required for organizational change. Consider the concept of redundancy in engineering. It seems inefficient, yet it guarantees resilience. Building redundancy into our careers, our investments, and our cognitive models ensures that failure in one area doesn't mean systemic shutdown. We should strive to be like the water bear, or tardigrade, not strong, but nearly indestructible due to the capacity to enter a state of cryptobiosis. They survive boiling, freezing, vacuum, and radiation by shutting down metabolism and pausing the need for strength. This illustrates profound non-resistance. The ultimate survival mechanism is sometimes the ability to wait, and fundamentally, to change form. The imperative of biology dictates that fitness is relative to the environment, not absolute strength. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life, is our superpower. It is the biological engine that allows us to unlearn obsolete maps and draw new ones in real time. The fixed mindset, defined by Dr. Carol Dweck, is the cognitive analog of the static empire or the specialized dinosaur. It believes abilities and intelligence are static traits. This belief creates immense psychological strength to resist threat, but zero adaptive capacity. When a failure occurs, the fixed mindset sees catastrophe, validation of inadequacy, and shuts down the learning process. The growth mindset, conversely, views challenges and failures not as threats to identity, but as high-fidelity feedback loops. This is adaptation in action, translating negative stimuli into actionable data, thereby improving future performance. Emotional regulation is central to cognitive adaptation. Stress and fear trigger primal fight or flight responses. While useful for physical threats, this state paralyzes complex decision-making required for strategic pivots. The adaptive mind can utilize techniques like reframing and detachment to interrupt the amygdala hijacking. This creates the necessary cognitive space to analyze the situation rationally, rather than reacting forcefully. We must practice metacognition, thinking about how we think. This self-awareness is the first step towards self-modification. How deeply are our current models entrenched? Are we solving the problem presented, or the problem we are comfortable solving? Adaptation requires epistemic humility, the recognition that our knowledge is incomplete and provisional. The most powerful leaders and thinkers are those willing to declare their deeply held beliefs wrong in the face of new evidence. This willingness to kill your darlings, your favorite theories or strategies, is the core act of intellectual adaptation. Routine exposure to novelty is crucial. Seeking out information that contradicts your worldview strengthens your mental musculature. If you only consume content that confirms your biases, you are strengthening specialization, not adaptation. Cognitive inertia is the enemy of survival. It is the psychological resistance to change, regardless of logical necessity. We overcome this inertia by deliberately practicing uncomfortable learning, starting a new language, mastering a complex software. These activities rewire the brain for flexibility, turning novelty from a threat into an opportunity. The ultimate measure of cognitive strength is the speed and grace with which you transition between divergent thought processes. This adaptive capacity scales directly from the individual mind to the largest organization. Keynote 4: Organizational Resilience. Companies are organisms, and their failure mechanisms perfectly mirror biological ones. When Blockbuster failed, it wasn't due to a lack of resources or market presence. It was a failure of adaptive foresight. They possessed the strength to maintain their existing revenue stream, but not the flexibility to sacrifice it for a future model. Netflix, meanwhile, demonstrated dynamic capabilities, the ability to sense opportunities, seize them, and reconfigure assets accordingly. They willingly cannibalized their profitable DVD by mail business to become a streaming giant. This pivot defined adaptive strength. Organizational adaptation requires 3 core elements: decentralized authority, experimentation culture, and transparent feedback. Decentralized authority ensures that sensing and decision-making happens closest to the front lines of change. A centralized hierarchy is an adaptive weakness, relying on slow information flow and bottlenecked analysis. Experimentation culture means creating safe-to-fail environments where failure is treated as a necessary cost of learning. If the organizational penalty for failure is too high, employees will prioritize maintaining the status quo, guaranteeing adaptive lag. Transparent feedback ensures that the signal of change is not filtered or suppressed as it moves up the hierarchy. In a robust system, bad news should travel faster than good news. Bad news is input for adaptation. The greatest threat is the sunk cost fallacy, pouring resources into a strategy solely because of past investment. Adaptation demands emotional and financial divorce from past decisions that no longer serve the future state. This relates to the concept of creative destruction, coined by economist Joseph Schumpeter. Innovation is the process of destroying old structures to make room for superior new ones. It requires deliberate self-disruption. Nokia, once a powerhouse, failed to adapt because their internal culture prioritized physical products over digital platforms. They were strong, profitable, and secure in their definition of the mobile market, which rapidly evolved past them. Contrast this with Amazon, whose core strength is not retail or cloud services, but organizational adaptation itself. They built a structure designed to test, fail, and rapidly scale new, disparate ventures. The biological generalist applied to business. In unpredictable environments, the premium is on resilience, defined not by how much strain you can absorb, but how fast you bounce back. The long-term winner is the system that can iterate faster than its competitors and the rate of environmental change. Organizational strength provides buffer, organizational adaptation provides trajectory. To survive the next decade, we must stop shoring up foundations and start designing for metamorphosis. Keynote 5: Engineering the Adaptive Mindset. How do we consciously cultivate this state of permanent readiness? The first tool is scenario planning. Instead of predicting a single future, map out 3 to 5 radically different potential futures. Future A: baseline stability. Future B: hyperscarcity and political conflict. Future C: exponential technological leap. By mentally inhabiting these diverse scenarios, we prepare our cognitive framework to process unexpected events without panic. We are not predicting the future. We are increasing our preparedness range. The second practice is productive failure. Deliberately engage in tasks where the chance of failure is high, but the cost is low. This desensitizes the system to the trauma of errors and shifts the focus from avoiding mistakes to extracting maximum insight. Think of it as adaptive fitness training, exercising the muscle of resilience when the stakes are manageable. Third, cultivate intellectual nomadism. Do not derive your professional or personal identity solely from your current role or location. Your identity must be rooted in your capacity to learn and contribute, regardless of the environment. The strongest human system is one that can operate effectively even when stripped of its familiar context. This relates to the Stoic practice of negative visualization, anticipating loss to mitigate its psychological shock. By accepting impermanence, we reduce our attachment to the static state, making the transition to the new state less painful. The final element is embracing continuous regeneration. Adaptation is not a one-time event, it is perpetual maintenance. We must constantly audit our beliefs, skills, and strategic frameworks for points of rigidity and vulnerability. The strength of a structure is only as good as its weakest, most inflexible joint. Survival is the reward for flexibility. It is the prize given to the entity that prioritizes responsiveness over brute resistance. The T-Rex is gone. The small, adaptive rodent lineage thrives, having shed specialized strength for generalized capability. Your personal and professional future depends not on the power you possess today, but on the capacity you build to pivot tomorrow. Embrace the fluid path. Start engineering your adaptive mindset today.